Why do I do this? Wait, can you hear me? I can't hear you.
I was muted. I can't wait to watch this back. This is great. From the top.
Welcome back to episode 3 of Punchline, the marketing podcast where we talk about things that everybody is thinking, but you don't want to say out loud. I'm Beth Cormack.
And I'm Drue Stennett. And if your idea of self-care lately is crying in your car between client calls or maybe contemplating a career change at 3 o'clock in the morning, you are in the right place. Today, we're talking about marketing's dirty little secret, burnout.
Because let's be honest, it happens to literally everybody. We've talked about this in previous episodes, but as just like a whole, we're not supposed to be consuming all of this content, not just in our personal lives, but add into like, this is your full-time job to be consuming all of this content. It's not great for the brain, so it's naturally going to lead to burnout.
So grab whatever you need to get through this conversation because we're about to get real about what the marketing industry is actually doing to our mental health.
And this isn't just going to be a complaint session. I mean, a lot of it's going to be a complaint session, but we also just want to share our individual experiences and just be real and honest about what we've gone through, share things that have worked for us in terms of getting out of burnout and climbing and clawing our way out of it, and ways that we can help you avoid it, get out of it, whatever you need. We're here to just talk about it. And we are so excited to be back with another episode.
Let's dive in. This is Punchline. So, Beth, you and I both know that burnout is not just this buzzword that people throw around when they need a vacation. We have experience proving that it's way more serious than that. And I'd love to kick things off this week, maybe talking about the first time that you experienced burnout yourself in your career.
Yeah. So I feel like over the course of decade working in marketing now, there's been many like mini instances of burnout where it just like lasts like maybe a week or two and I'm just feeling like really down and out and just feeling really creatively burnt out. But I feel like my first real major burnout episode was during quarantine. And that was fucking terrible. And I never want to go back to that place again. I have talked about this before, but just I worked my first half of my career, I was working for myself. I had a freelance business, marketing agency. I had a couple of other businesses. Have talked about this before, but I was just chasing that girl boss energy, was up like working until like 1 a.m. and prided myself in that. I was like, oh yeah, look at me. I'm such a girl boss, tip tapping away at my laptop till like 2 a.m, several nights a week. No, like why did I do that?
Yeah.
And I feel like also working in the creative side of marketing and also having ADHD, there's all these things that were just compounding, and I put a lot of internal pressure on myself to always be creating something new. I found a lot of success with like an online event that I did during COVID, which really took off and was like a really pivotal point of my career. And maybe I'll talk about that in a future episode, like dive into my career lore. But you know, that in itself, like I feel like, and I'm still kind of like this, and I don't want to use necessarily like a drug comparison, but for me, when I get like these high career achievements, it's kind of like taking a hit of something, and you get this like really high for like a while, and you're like, this is awesome. I'm on top of the world. This is great. This is also probably like related to mental health issues for sure. But then if you don't continue to stay up there and you don't keep taking those hits of dopamine, crash. And that's exactly what happened to me. And I think it was definitely like building up over the course of my entire like entrepreneurship career, like 5 or 6 years, because I just wasn't taking care of myself. I didn't have any personal or professional boundaries. I literally didn't know what that was in my head. I just like would never really took a vacation, really didn't know how to set those important boundaries for myself. And so add COVID into that, where we're all isolated and alone. And it was like end of 2020, November, December. I just crashed so hard. And it wasn't just like one day. It was like really, again, like compounding over months and months, years even. But I felt like I just got into this like super, super dark and deep depression. Trigger warning, but also was suffering through like a major eating disorder, which was due to stress and depression and all these things. I was financially super unstable and like at this point kind of broke because it was just everything in my life was just like crashing down on me. And I remember just like laying in my bed, and it was COVID, so no one could really go out anyways. It was also like middle of winter, so I like couldn't even get outside for a walk, but I'm just like laying in bed, and I didn't have windows in my bedroom at the time either in my last in that apartment I lived in. So I was just like literally in this dark depression, just sitting there, like had all these problems around me, and I just felt so numb. And I was like, eventually I just accepted that I belonged there, and there was no getting out for me. I was like, this is where I belong. I'm just going to sit here and let these problems quite literally eat me alive. And there's nothing that I can do about it. And I think that is a direct result of feeling burnt out because you don't even have the mental energy to climb yourself out of whatever mental thing is going on. And I don't know, like, it wasn't one day that I had like an epiphany. It was just kind of like, I hit rock bottom. I hit burnout again, was numb, not doing anything. And then I just like hit a point where I was like, okay, this is not a sustainable way to live. I am, again, not making enough money. I am stressed in all areas of my life.
Yeah.
So what do I do now? So I decided to do the really hard thing, which was face all of my problems rather than just like laying beside them and just being like, oh yeah, you exist. We're going to sit in this depression hole together. I like pulled them up and looked at them in the face, even though I wanted to fucking vomit about like just getting so fucking real with myself about what I needed to change about my life in order to get out of this burnout. And, I thought about what are the top things that are stressing me out? And the top one was finances. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I have to stop chasing this like girl boss pipe dream that I have really identified my entire self with for my whole professional career up until this point. And maybe I have to start looking for more stability and a corporate job. And it was like a really hard thing to come to terms with because I was like, I feel like a failure. I feel like, something's wrong with me. At this point, I also had undiagnosed ADHD. So like this was all just, a lot.
Yeah.
I decided to start applying for jobs and just slowly kind of chip away at the things that caused me to burn out. And that was the first thing. And I ended up getting a job. And a lot of people talk about transitioning from corporate to working for themselves and just like celebrating all the freedom and all of the exciting things that come with that. But no one talks about the burnout that can come from it too. For me, I had the complete opposite experience. I went from working for myself to going to corporate, and that was by far the best thing for my mental health at the time and still is. It gave me stability, not only financial stability, but it gave me mental stability, emotional stability. I had a routine. I had, health insurance also because I am a type 1 diabetic and I can't even talk about healthcare.
Yeah.
I had health insurance for the first time. I wasn't paying close to $1,000 to just live, literally. Like I was not paying for my own health insurance anymore. Like all of these things just started falling into place because of that one change that I made. And even if it was a big change and it was a really scary change to make, but I contribute that to me getting out of burnout, which is crazy. It's like to think about it, it's like, oh, you're getting out of burnout by working more. It's like, no, I was actually working less because I had more work-life balance. I didn't have to handle everything that there is to managing your own business. I was no longer the CFO, the CEO, and the CMO. I was just a social media manager at a tech company. And let me fucking tell you, that felt so good. And I think from there, like obviously I was now able to go into therapy too because I had health insurance that paid for it, and literally just like building my life back and slowly crawling my way out of this hole that I had dug myself into for however many years. And it was the best feeling. And I think like, sometimes my therapist says to me, like we talk about healing and how a lot of times people think like when you're healing, it's supposed to be this like nice, easy process. But it's not. It's really fucking hard. And you have to force yourself to look at the hard things in your life and come to terms with the fact that they're different or they need to change in order for you to continue to get better, in order for you to get out of burnout. you have to do the hard shit. And that's why it's so hard to get out of that state, because you're like, I have to do hard things to get out of this hard place that I'm in. It's not fucking fair. So yeah, that is I just feel like I just like yapped for a lot, but I'm just like really passionate about this topic. Yeah, so that was my first real crash out burnout, I would say, was in 2020. Drue, I will hand the microphone over to you.
No. I'm so proud of you. First of all, I think it's been really amazing watching you over the last almost half decade just go through these different stages and seasons of your life. I think you have some real resilience in you that I really admire. Yeah, when I think about burnout, like, I think what comes to mind for me really is like, it's not just being tired. And I think like a lot of people maybe have this misconception that when you're burnout, you're just exhausted. And I think for a lot of people, that's a big part of it. But thinking through people who are in a creative role, I don't know. I saw something on LinkedIn in the last couple of weeks that really resonated with me. I know it's not a revolutionary thought, but it's really been something I've been chewing on, which is that creative people need time to do nothing. And this might be surprising to you, Beth. I identify as a bit of a overachiever. And really shocking for everyone who knows
Shocking.
me. Yeah. But I think like one thing that my manager and I talk about often is that I have this like weird pressure for myself where I never feel like I'm doing enough. And I do a lot. I do a lot like in my 9 to 5, outside of my 9 to 5, like I'm a pretty busy girl. And I have a really hard time telling people no. So I do have a tendency to maybe like stretch myself too thin. And still I always feel like I should be doing more than I am. And I can pinpoint that back to some horrible managers I've had in the past, but we won't do that today. To be honest, like I might not put this in the final episode, but I'm like in burnout right now in a lot of ways, and like I'm like really struggling with it. And it's hard because I feel like historically it's kind of always been my own fault, because I'm, like you were saying earlier, setting boundaries in your work life and in all aspects of your life. Like boundaries are the most important thing that you can do, and it's something that I am just not very good at. So I'm learning. I don't know that I have like the best advice for people listening, but definitely a lot of experience in this. And like my first marketing job ever was at a little B2B marketing agency. I started working full time my senior year of college. And it was just a small, scrappy little group of people. And I don't want to disparage them, because I think they're all amazing people, but we were still very susceptible to this like agency culture. So cutting my teeth in that environment, I think it just set this expectation that like that's what my career had to be. I was also, for better or worse, like I was entrusted with so much responsibility at that company. I was extremely close with the CEO, and I was just like a 22-year-old little dumbass, and he gave me the world. Like anything I wanted to do, he fully supported me, and like I was making real business decisions like less than a year out of college. And like I learned so much in that amount of time, and like got experience that I'm so grateful for, and like has made me just the marketer that I am, for sure. But I also was like going to the office at 7:30 in the morning and leaving at like 7:30 at night. And I don't know, I think all of my friends were people who worked at that agency. It was my whole world. I remember the first time we lost a client, it felt like I was going through a breakup. It's really hard to avoid burnout when you're so like emotionally tied to the work that you're doing. And for people like us, it's pretty hard not to tie your value to your work sometimes.
Yes, it's very, very hard. And what you were saying before about like you are never, you're overachiever. I'm the same way. And I talk to my therapist a lot about this. And because I'm always thinking, what's next? What's next? What's next for me? And I think the hardest part about this season of my life of being unemployed has been the fact that I tie a lot of my purpose or my like self-worth to my career. And I've always been that way. I'm very driven. And it's not necessarily being driven is not a bad thing. It's a great quality that I like about myself, but I'm just always setting the bar higher. And like my therapist was like, have you ever considered that you're like not fully satisfied because every time you hit a goal, you don't recognize that you hit the goal, you just set the bar higher. So instead of like being like, I did this is fucking awesome. It's like, oh no, now I have to do this. So you don't even, you skip the step of acknowledging that you did something really fucking cool, or that even if it's not really something cool, like it can be small wins too. But I think when you are an overachiever, that's kind of where your brain goes. It's just like you're never able to fully be content with where you're at. And because of all that internal pressure that you're putting on yourself, and sometimes external pressure too. You're just constantly raising the bar, raising the bar, raising the bar, and you never allow yourself to just sit in the accomplishments that you've done and appreciate where you're at. Because, outside of work, like, let's be honest, the world is a fucking dumpster fire right now. And so, like, we're not only dealing with like just work stuff that we're tying a lot of our value to, but also we're just living in a world right now that's like every day I'm like, sorry, what? What the fuck is
Yeah.
going on?
Yeah.
And that's another thing that I think like, and I see a lot of conversations about this online too, but the fact that like, as a society in like capitalism, we're still expected to show up at work every day. And it's like this major, world event could be happening that's super tragic and really fucking sad and whatever. And then we log on to our 9 a.m. Zoom meeting and it's like, hey, how are you? And we're all expected to be like, good, and just continue to like tippy tap on our laptops and, build whatever, like slide decks and shit that really doesn't matter, like in the grand scheme of things. And
Yeah.
I think that can, it's a lot. And whoever's listening to this, I want you to fully internalize that. Like, not like you made a post with this yesterday, Drew, or the other day. Like, nothing is that serious,
Yeah.
especially in the marketing world. Taking care of yourself is number one, because if you don't take care of yourself, this is cliche, you can't take care of anyone else. You can't show up for yourself. You can't show up for anything else. And I wish more companies encourage that, because it's not just, I know some companies are like, oh yeah, we encourage taking mental health days, but a day, so, like a lot of times it's like not enough. Like it's
Yeah.
like, I don't know. There's so much more that goes into setting up a sustainable career for you and a sustainable just life in general. And it's hard. But yeah.
Yeah. Now, what makes marketing burnout particularly challenging is that I feel like we are expected to be always on. We're always
Mhm.
making content for all of these different channels. We're staying ahead of algorithm changes, and like you're translating really technical content into something that is like interesting and like accessible and compelling. And like we're expected to have this authentically enthusiastic attitude about the brands that we're working for, and sometimes you're just depleted behind the scenes, and I
Yeah.
think that disconnect that we project and what we feel can be its own unique strain in a lot of ways. Like some days I am so energized to like be behind a successful campaign that's crushing conversion targets, and some days I am absolutely exhausted by this constant need to quantify my creativity and like
Yeah.
work with under this pressure to do more with less.
Mhm.
That's just increasing every day. And like, I'm from Asheville, North Carolina. I spent like 2.5 decades of my life there, and like it is home to me. My family is still there. And I remember when Hurricane Helene came through in the fall, I had my phone in one hand, like watching updates of like, are my parents going to lose their house? This city that I love and that is like such a deep part of me is getting destroyed. And here I am to talk to you guys about the Q1 campaign. I'm so excited on Zoom.
Yep.
And that was just such a dystopian feeling that I stopped the call maybe 5 minutes into it. And I was just like, I don't know if anyone else is having a hard day, but I am. And I'm thankful that the company that I work for now, the culture on our team allows for that humanity. But I've also worked at places where that would be crazy to just stop
Yep.
a pitch meeting and recognize hard things going on. And at the same time, like even just this month, same town that I grew up in was like getting just ruined by wildfires, which we've never experienced before. And those are two like extreme examples of like really
Mhm.
like personal, like global events that are happening. But
Yep.
here's my LinkedIn content for the month. I hope you guys enjoy.
Yeah, no, and I 100% agree. And I think it's so important to do what you just said you did during a meeting, being like, can we just take a pause and acknowledge that I'm having a really hard time, and if you're having a really
Yeah.
hard time too, like that's okay. And I think we need to normalize those kinds of conversations in the work setting, because it's true. And I am really grateful that I've worked at all the companies I've worked at have been the same way. Like where something happens in the outside world that is really heavy and really difficult, like always just, taking time to acknowledge it and being like, if you need to take a step or take the day off today or whatever, completely fine. And I think that is important and normal. And I think it's also, marketing specific. Not only like are we, like you said, we're always needing to be on, and that's not necessarily like always putting out. It's not like we have to put content out 24/7, which we kind of do, but like,
Yeah.
but in terms of always on, just like you said, algorithm changes, keeping up with trends, all this stuff. So when you do take a day off or you take a week off, you're behind, it feels like, and you're like playing catch up. And then it's also like, in both of our worlds, in social media and content marketing. And I think I talked about this in our last episode with Chi, but it's one of the few jobs where our output is on display for the whole world. Maybe not the whole world, but
A lot of people.
publicly displayed for people to see and consume. And not everybody is in the same headspace as the people behind the scenes. So like somewhat like, and they don't know that. Like they're just seeing a brand post something and it's hard to kind of like take a look behind the curtain and personify like that person behind the scenes could be really having a really hard day or a really hard time, and they push through to produce this content for you to consume. And that's what I think makes it just a lot more difficult, because you not only feel like this internal pressure to, especially as an overachiever, you don't only feel that internal pressure to produce it yourself and produce output because you're constantly feeling the need to go, but you're also feeling like you owe it to your audience to be producing that content because you take a lot of pride in your work, and your teammates are relying on you, you're relying on yourself, and you want to do the best that you can do, but then also you have your audience to think about too. And it's really hard. And I think all three of those things combined in the marketing world is what makes it really hard. And also, a lot of the times marketing teams are way understaffed. So, and then like when layoffs happen, marketing teams are usually one of the first to get cut, but the work does not, like the level of expectations for output does not decrease after layoffs. So you're just like, okay, I think all marketers are like, whether or not we want to be, we're like forced to be scrappy and resourceful. And whenever I'm in interviews, like I use that a lot of the times as like a selling point for myself, which it is. But I'm also like, I don't know if I want to be scrappy and resourceful all the time. I just want to have the resources available to me to be able to do my job. But instead, I feel like a lot of the times marketers are just kind of like expected to just do a lot with a little, which makes it even more difficult to like not burn out.
It's really easy, especially in our disciplines. So easy for anyone to look at what we do in content and in social and think that it's an easy job. And I'm not out here, I'm not a nurse. I'm not out here doing manual labor. Like, perspective's everything. I get that. But also, like, there's such a specialized skill set that goes into content marketing, that goes into social media marketing. And like, because it's what people are so used to consuming, they think that they can do that really well. And I think that can lead to like feedback loops that can be pretty difficult. And I know I've worked at companies in the past where I'm like, okay, am I ever just going to get a good job? Like the feedback is great. I want to do better, but like, can someone just validate me? Just one time, please.
Even if it's someone in the comment section that you don't know, like getting a comment. I think I saw a LinkedIn post that was like, my favorite KPI is when someone leaves a comment saying like, give your social media manager a raise, or like commenting like good feedback. It's like, I love that. And we did a whole episode. We did focus on like words of affirmation in our last episode too. But I think, it's tough because, and I think a lot of it, like maybe not a lot of the times, but I think because like everyone's kind of when you're in marketing, like we said, it's just like you're on a hamster wheel all the time trying to go. So, your managers, your superiors, like they're in that same hamster wheel too. And so I think sometimes, even if they're really great managers, sometimes like they don't even think to like pause and take a step and be like, great job, this was awesome, whatever. And the best managers I've ever had did make that a point to like stop what they were doing and send a Slack message out being like, Beth did this, like whatever, like she did a really great job in this project. And that's just like feels really validating to someone like me. But I think again, like everyone's kind of in their own hamster wheel in the marketing world. And feels like there's no time to just slow down, even though there is. We just don't create those boundaries for ourselves. But I think, yeah, even just having that kind of like crumb of little feedback can be really, really helpful. And also just, I don't know, I feel like it's like a good way to help kind of avoid burnout too, because you're like, at least the work I'm doing is making an impact and matters and people are consuming it. Because that's another thing too, is like you put all this work into creating content. Like you said, everyone thinks that they can do it because they're consuming it, which is just not the case. Because not only is it like technical skills, but more so than that, there's so much mental stuff that you can't even really teach. I feel like some people are just born marketers and some people are just not, especially on the creative, like the
Amen.
creative and brand side. We're constantly needing to like code switch and be just like always, I don't know. And I think that's why agency life is so hard, because you're constantly needing to like code switch brand messaging, tone of voice between different clients multiple times in a day. And then you're also needing to like come back to yourself and be like, okay, am I talking in my voice or am I talking in the brand voice? Like it's really fucking hard to constantly just be switching your psyche day in and day out several times a day. And that also happens with the in-house marketing too. You're just like in that constant state of like, okay, brand voice, my voice, brand voice, my voice. And it's really, it just kind of like fucks with you.
No, that's so true. I think when you're trying to understand, like if you're a team manager or a team leader, or you're just like having some influence in what you're doing at work, a culture of high trust, I think is like one of the number one things that you can do to help your team avoid this cycle of burnout. Like just let people work with autonomy. I think like one of the jobs where I just experienced the most burnout in the shortest amount of time, I had several years of experience under my belt at this point. I'd worked with really cool clients. I generally am just like a competent person. And even very early on in this role, I was overseeing a lot of content. I was doing brand social, some blog stuff, like, but I had to send every single thing that I made to my manager. And Beth, I am not joking. There was not a single piece of content I ever submitted to her that came back without edits. And they were not good at just you're splitting hairs. I don't know. Like I've already said, like I enjoy and value critical feedback, but there's also a point where like if you're like you can't do that to creative people and expect them to be creative.
Most of these companies don't even have a content machine. Like they don't have the proper, I guess for using this metaphor, like the proper parts to have a fully functional content machine. Like where, like there's two people on the creative, like on like two designers or one photographer for the whole fucking company, and they're expecting all of this output from all these different channels, and you're like, we don't have that. And like it's also like if you want me to put out shitty content, that's also gonna impact my like KPIs and my goals that I have as a channel. And then once that shitty content performs shitty, you're going to come back and be like, why did it perform shitty? And I'm going to say like, well, you told me to put out shitty content, so that's why it's performing shitty. Like I told you this. And I think what you said about the autonomy is so important. And I've been really lucky. I feel like I've just lucked out with managers in my corporate career. And they've both been women, but I've had a lot of autonomy in my work, which has been really nice. Because it's also like, the more that you try to micromanage, the more back and forth that you have, especially I feel like in the tech world, this happens a lot where there's just way too much back and forth and way too much like semantics and shit. And I'm like, we just got to put stuff out. Like it doesn't have to be 100% perfect, because also people don't care if it's perfect on the outside. They don't care. Like it's more relatable if there's like, not talking about like a bunch of typos and stuff, but just like it doesn't have to be so polished. And the more steps that you put into it, the more stressful it is. And then people are going to like lose sight of what the actual impact and what matters. And you're just going to get your teammates discouraged and, a person who worked really hard in it. If you're giving them back if you're putting a bunch of red tape in front of, especially creatives, it makes it really hard. And like, I just feel like maybe this is my ADHD too, but the constant kind of like if I have focus time and then I get back, I get a Slack message, I'm gonna look at that Slack message, and if there, I'm gonna drop whatever I'm doing and just like focus on something else. And even if this thing is more important, and if I'm getting back feedback that it's like all over the place, I'm gonna be like, well, fuck. Now I'm gonna have to spend the rest of my day doing this versus this more high impact project that I'm working on. So I think the less red tape that you can put in front of, especially a creative, the better. And I think the more output that you'll get, and I don't know, it'll just be overall just better for your team because we're already dealing with a lot of fucking shit. You don't need to make more shit internal.
In terms of scaling production and stuff, I think that one way that that is executed well is when maybe you're doing it as a sprint or like a pilot test, and you're giving your
Yeah.
team um, the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak.
Yep.
Like we could look forward and say, okay, we're doing this for 6 weeks. We'll look back at the data and see what it says. And then you can know, because maybe I don't know that I've ever experienced this, but maybe there are cases where scaling production in that way does move the needle for the business. But why would you
Mhm.
do that if you're not having results to back that up?
Yep. 100%. So question on AI. So
I was
do
just
you
about to ask about
think
this.
um do you think the rise of like AI tools, do you think that's like helped with burnout, or like has, do you think it's like relieved some of the pressure off of teams? And it maybe both. I think for me, I think it's a little bit of both, but I'm curious what you think.
No, I think it's both, and I think it depends on the culture of your workplace. I think that there are plenty of marketing leaders in the space who are talking about AI as a way to make their team less burdened. And I really
Mhm.
respect that, and like am super, super aligned with that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it definitely is both, but I also think there's I feel like the way that it can contribute to burnout is the fact that because we have these AI tools, people are like, "Oh, this makes everything so much easier." So you should theoretically be able to produce 3x the amount that you were before because we're giving you all these tools that essentially do everything for you. Which sure, AI tools help. I love Claude. Claude is like my therapist, my best
Yeah.
friend, my work buddy. Love Claude. But it's like you're ignoring the fact that it's all about the human input into Claude or into these AI tools that give you a better output. And that human input takes work, it takes creativity. And even just like setting up those tools to be successful for your team is a lot of work. So I think, having AI, like leadership who thinks that AI means like, oh, we can scale 3x the amount that we're doing because of these tools without raising headcount. That's crazy business. That is going to lead to burnout and contribute to it. However, if you have leadership that is like, let's keep doing what we're doing. We have these AI tools at our disposal to make your lives easier. Because let's honestly, like marketing teams are already, again, like needing to be scrappy and resourceful, and they're already under like under resourced. So like adding these AI tools doesn't necessarily mean that they're like way above now and they have all this extra time on their hands. No, we probably just have like a reasonable amount of time now versus like negative time to do all this shit. So I think when leadership views it in that way, around like we have these tools that we're providing as additional resources for your team so you can do
Yeah.
things more efficiently and better and faster, great. I think that is like a better culture than kind of expecting it to just replace people, and also having the expectation that's like, oh, now we're like a team of, this AI thing is now the same equivalent as 10 extra hires, which no, it's not.
Yeah.
And also just like AI content isn't there yet. Like it's not even like the AI generated videos. Sure, some of them are kind of scarily good, but most of them I'm not putting that's not brand content. Like this like that's I'm not I actually saw, did you see Barkbox, the brand? They
Yes.
put out all that controversy. They put out a AI video of a dog or something, or some sort of pet. It was like very clearly AI, and people, their consumers, kind of like there's a lot of backlash, and they ended up taking the content down. And that to me was crazy because if you're a dog company, you have endless content, endless real content, like user generated content. You have like the most Instagrammable, TikTokable product in the world, which is dogs. Everybody fucking loves dogs. So why are you
Yeah.
needing to use AI to produce content? That just didn't make any sense to me, but that's kind of that's a little tangent, but
I never saw the video before it got deleted. I'm sure I could find it on Reddit somewhere, but my take on that situation from what I read online is probably that like there was some leader within Bark's organization, and I'm purely speculating here. Someone in leadership was just pressuring that team to adopt AI, and I know in my soul that that is how that came about.
yeah.
But no, I have seen that, and I'm not one to usually make predictions like this. Like, I'm just a girl with a keyboard. I don't really know anything, but I feel pretty strongly that companies that are over investing in AI right now are going to see the same struggles as companies who overhired during the pandemic. I think that AI adoption is the future. I think that there's a really smart and ethical way to do it, because beyond just the impacts, the serious impacts of AI adoption and what that can do to the people working for you, as we're saying with Bark, there are a lot of people paying your bills that don't like AI. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if even in the next 12 months, we're starting to see human generated content be a value prop for companies. Like, I think I'm honestly kind of surprised we're not already seeing that, like, as a label.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think those companies that are over investing in AI, they should be putting more than half of those resources into like user generated content or real human stuff that's like already being produced. And that's the kind of content that works. Like people can see right through AI bullshit. Like we can. Not to say that it's not helpful, not to say that, it can't, a lot of, sometimes you can't. I'll be the first to say it, but like a lot of people can. And I think those companies that are over investing in AI, they're underestimating the intelligence of their consumers. And that's kind of stuff's just not going to resonate in the same way as UGC or human generated content, talking face content. All that stuff is super important. And I think the reason why people are over investing in AI, because that means they have to hire people in order to create that content machine in the way that it should be. But instead, you have social media managers being the face of the brand. They're creating the content, they're editing the video, they're managing the accounts, they're strategizing, even content teams too. Like you have all these people taking on this kind of full-time content creator role, which is also a huge like contribution to burnout too. Like it's like needing to get on like every single day. Like some days I just don't want to fucking do my hair or put makeup on. But for a lot of the companies I've worked for, I don't really have that option because I have to sit in front of a camera and I have to look a certain way and I have to present a certain way, even on days when I don't want to. And then, then I just get engulfed in TikTok doom scrolling, which, is like a whole other thing. But yeah, I think there's just like, I don't know. I feel like most companies just think they want a content machine, but they don't want to invest in the proper tools to create a content machine. And I think that is a huge reason why a lot of marketers are burnt out, because even, 3-4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, it was not like this. Like video content is so much fucking harder to produce and put out there. Like I remember when I first started in social media 10 years ago, I could schedule a client's content out for a whole month in like a 4-hour session. I could sit there, go on Hootsuite, plug in all of my pretty little photos with the pretty little captions and hashtags. And I could just set it and leave it for a month and just obviously like oversee it and manage it a little bit. But I didn't need to be hopping on trends. I didn't need to be like constantly being like consuming all this content in order to keep up. I didn't need to do any of that. And it made it so much easier. But now it's a whole different beast of that's the pressure. And that's what you have to do in order to keep up. Like you have to be chronically online in order to succeed in the marketing world now, I feel like.
No, you're so right. And I think I think something she's really good at that I also am like, I hate that you have to be so good at that, is just moving at the speed of culture. And I think social marketers are really impacted by that. But I think the marketing community as a whole, like you have to be tuned in.
Yep.
And it's so like, I feel the disconnect more so now because in my community in Kansas City, like I'm the only person in this group that has a job like this. So I'll be making conversation about things. Like if I were to bring up that bark video, all of my friends would be like, what the hell are you talking about? Like they're so far removed from this world. And like I was in therapy this week and like just kind of talking through like my work-life boundaries and like you know, just doing my due diligence of taking care of myself and my therapist. I think we need merch that says this, to be honest, but she reminded me that life is not conversion rate optimization unless the conversion rate is converting on joy.
Wait, not me sobbing.
No, I'm obsessed with her. She's the best therapist I've ever.
Can you repeat that for the studio audience one more time?
Life is not about conversion rate optimization unless the conversion rate is converting on joy.
Me crying. I love that.
No, it's it really touched me. I really needed to hear that. And I think you mentioned my LinkedIn post already, but I think maybe right after that therapy session, I drafted this little blurb for LinkedIn that people are really resonating with. But the takeaway is just like, girly pop, you are a human.
Yeah.
You're not a machine. And I think one thing, this is maybe my last thought on this subject, but one thing that I really struggle with is treating myself like a marketing campaign, in that I'm always looking to plan ahead. I'm always looking to optimize. I'm always feeling like I could be doing so much better, so much more than I am. And I think in some ways, yeah, a growth mindset is a really valuable thing to have, not when it's absolutely crushing your spirit. And I just need to remind myself sometimes, like, to treat myself like a houseplant, to be honest. Like, drink some water, go sit in the sun.
Yeah.
You're going to be fine.
I think like the whole concept of like go touch grass, a lot of times it's like coming from a point of like aggression, like go fucking touch grass. But like, no, we're prescribing you to go outside and literally touch grass. Because again, nothing is that serious. You need to take care of yourself. And I think because we are in such a, we're always online, chronically online in the marketing world, and online is just not real. Like it's literally the World Wide Web. I don't even know what the fuck Wi-Fi does. What is Bluetooth? I don't even know. It's literally just like little things in the cloud that it's not tangible to me and I don't understand it and I don't care to understand all the technicalities of it, but it's not real. So I think that's a really good reminder to just get the fuck outside, feel the sun in your skin, touch the fucking grass with your feet or your hands or whatever. Feel the sun on your skin. All that is so important. And I think it's so obvious, but not enough of us do it, especially because we're all like, most of us are, maybe not most of us, but a lot of us work remote now. So we never really have to leave our little cocoons if we don't have to. And I think that also can contribute it too, because I know for a fact that my brain or anyone's brain was not meant to eat, sleep, work, go to therapy, and cry, laugh all in the same four walls for 24 hours a day. Like that's just not, So I think, and I think as we kind of conclude this episode, do you have I think a good thing to end on is like any words of advice for either avoiding burnout or getting out of burnout or just like building kind of a more sustainable career?
Yeah, I have so much advice I wish I could go back and tell myself in the past. 3 things. 1, work for someone that trusts you as much as you trust them. Like the relationship that you have with your team and with your manager is so, so important. Take real time off. Like take your PTO and actually let it be time off. Delete Slack off your phone. Don't check your emails. Real time away is so, so important. And 3, go outside. I know we just like have regurgitated that over and over again, but like truly just set a routine, make sure you're going outside, getting some vitamin D, and just remember like you're saving PDFs, not lives.
That needs to be merch too. I'm done.
I tell the people I work with all the time, like it's truly not that serious. Like, have a good work ethic.
Yeah.
We're not doctors. We're not curing
Yeah.
cancer. It's fine.
Yep. And I really like your second point about, because something that I started doing was when I set my PTO message, because there's also this like culture of capitalism, right? Where people are like, if you really need me, you can reach me at, so no, you don't,
No.
no, you don't need to reach me. Nothing is that much of an emergency where you need to reach me while I'm taking my time off. So I started, and maybe I'll share this in the Substack or, but I have this template that I use for my PTO message where it's just like, I'll say like, I'm out of office, I'm unreachable. If you need to reach someone, here's my colleague's email. And give people a reminder that it's okay to take time off and take true time off. So I have a little cute template that I use that I've gotten some really great feedback on from people when it gets like automatically sent to them. I've gotten like a handful of responses from people being like, "Oh my God, I'm stealing this. I love this." Because it's like a nice little reminder and boundary setting. And I think if, my biggest advice is to learn how to set boundaries early on in your career, as early as possible. And I think if I had done that, I would have built a much more sustainable freelancer entrepreneurship career for myself. But I was also like 23, so I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. But boundaries are so, so important. And it's not just boundaries with your coworkers or people it's boundaries for yourself. Like, if you're not comfortable with something, or you're feeling like, you just are saying yes to, like, just say no, or say like, I can't attend to this right now. Like, let me loop back with you in like a week or 2 weeks, or whenever you feel like you're able to add more to your plate. Because again, at the end of the day, and I think I was just talking to someone about this, but when you work in an organization, everyone's individual work, everyone's individual projects that they're working on, that is the most important thing to them. So they're going to project that onto you. And it's like, if you need to be collaborative on it, or they need something from you to like contribute to their project, they're going to ask it in a way that's like, this is my most important thing that I'm working on. So it has to be your most important thing too. Yeah. Their most important project is not yours. So it's okay to set that boundary. But yeah, like always, this was therapy to me. Really enjoyed this episode. I don't know how you feel, Drew, but I feel like we're both still trying to figure it out. Even if we've been through burnout, we're still every day have to work to avoid it and, just work on ourselves.
Yeah, and it's not just us. I think there are more people in our world than not who are going through this. So, folks at home, I hope this was interesting and helpful for you. Thank you so much for tuning in again.
Yep.
And we'll see you on Wednesday. Remember
Yep.
to subscribe to our Substack. You can find the link in the show notes. Connect with us on LinkedIn. And if you're interested in being a guest, if you have some marketing wisdom you'd like to share, we would love to hear from you.
Yeah. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, review us on Spotify, all those good things. So thank you guys. And we will see you next week.
See you next week.